How about that game last night? What was your take on that finale?
Absolute game of the year. I mean, you had the Lamar Jackson quote-unquote cramps game. And, Lamar Jackson went into the locker room up 34-20. Baker Mayfield throws on a heroic performance, brings the Browns back up 35-34. And then they go toe-to-toe. Lamar scores a touchdown. Baker scores a touchdown. And Lamar Jackson drives home Justin Tucker for a 55-yard field goal for the game. Just an incredible performance. The game of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I did not expect 90 points to be scored. We were talking about Tucker in the first hour of the show. I mean, he might be the best ever at that position. It's unbelievable.
He might be. I mean, he's been insane. I mean, Justin Tucker is legitimately one of the more successful kickers from 40-plus yards out, 50-plus yards out, Mr. Automatic as he would. And kickers, there's a ton of volatility in the NFL of that, but somehow Justin Tucker has been a model of consistency for the Baltimore Ravens, and consistency at that position is all you're looking for. You're not looking for Marquette King post-kick antics. You're not looking for even the opera singing Justin Tucker does. You're looking for consistency, and that's what he's really brought to that special teams unit.
Yeah, I mean, he's been automatic his entire career. I don't get it. I mean, you see Dan Bailey in Minnesota, who's been a veteran and made big kicks in his career. He's got the shanks right now. I mean, he can't hit anything. It doesn't matter where it is. Could be 25 yards. He can't hit anything. But Tucker never has – I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I haven't looked at his year-by-year stats, but I don't think he's ever gone through kind of a lull where he just mentally couldn't make a kick.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where the difference is in really good kickers and bad kickers. It's a mental game. Every kicker that gets an opportunity in the NFL, even a practice squad opportunity in the NFL, has the leg and the accuracy to hit a kick from 50-plus yards consistently. The problem is it's way more than that. It's the mental aspect of the game that forces on a Cody Parkey situation. Mason Crosby had the yips for a little bit. Adam Vinatieri couldn't make a PAT to save his life before he retired with the Indianapolis Colts. Like, this happens to kickers. That mental part of the game can get you. I mean, it's very similar to what's happening to Carson Wentz this year, in my opinion. It's a mental part of this game where he is pressing. He is making decisions he would not previously make, and they're stacking on each other. It's that quicksand quote from that famous movie, The Replacements, with Keanu Reeves. You just keep pressing and pressing and pressing until you just stack mistakes to the point where you can't win. I think you see that with kickers. You've seen that with other positions as well.
So let's talk about Baker for a little bit before we focus here on D.C. and Washington. Baker seems to just taking his game to another level this year. How much of that is Baker? How much of that is Stefanski? A lot of people want to give him credit. The offense, maturity. What are you seeing from Baker?
I mean, last night was honestly one of the best performances I've ever seen from Baker Mayfield. He maneuvered the pocket, specifically maneuvered the pocket under pressure, better than he's ever played. That's always been his concern. Even dating back to his years at Oklahoma, he struggled under pressure. When the pocket started to collapse, he made bad decisions with the football or took bad sacks. You did not see that last night. And Don Martindale threw the kitchen sink at him. He threw a ton of blitzes, as he always does. The offensive line protected well. It's one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. But even when he was pressured, Baker Mayfield stepped up in the pocket, moved to his right, extended the play, and was accurate on the move. The dude has an absolute cannon, by the way. Some people doubt Baker Mayfield's arm strength. That throw at the end of the half that went in and out of the back of the end zone was over 70 yards in the air. And he also puts a ton of zip on these throws when under pressure, trying to fire it into tight windows. He got overconfident a bit with the Tyus Bowser interception. I think he thought he could get by Tyus with a fireball, but Bowser with a great play on that ball. But I do think outside of that play, it was a very, very good performance from Baker Mayfield, one of the best I've seen.
So, Austin, I wanted to ask you about Tua. And Tua accounted for 3 touchdowns this past week. And he was sacked 4 times. He was getting pressured. He did throw the pick. But, he kind of made it interesting, scoring 17 points in that game in the fourth quarter. But, again, they're trying to hold off Baltimore for the last wild card spot. And they've got a big game this week against New England. Now, New England's been struggling offensively, obviously, with Cam. But what are you guys seeing with Tua? Is he progressing to the level that you thought he would to start the year?
I think he's progressing slightly, but what I've always said is this offense with Tua Tagovailoa has 2 sets of training wheels on it. They do not want him to throw the ball downfield. They do not want him working to his second and third reads. They want to get the ball out quick, feed Lynn Bowden Jr., Preston Williams, Devontae Parker, whichever receiver they can find healthy, and let them move the football down the field that way. Because I still think they're trying to get Tua Tagovailoa's feet wet in the NFL. This was a guy that was not pegged the starter to start the season. A rookie quarterback not getting first-team reps until last few weeks when he was benched or when Ryan Fitzpatrick was benched during the bye week makes it that much harder for him to adjust to the NFL. Then you throw in the Zoom meeting off-season, no preseason. This guy is very much adjusting on the fly to what has already been 10 weeks into the season when he first got his start. That's when he first got his opportunity, when defenses are already catching up to this 2020 season. I think it's going to be tough to really get a good evaluation of Tua Tagovailoa in 2020. You're not going to know what he is at the quarterback position until next year or even year after that, because he just hasn't had the time to prepare for the NFL and properly adjust, and the offense is showing that time as well.
Yeah, I mean, if he gets a normal year, normal offseason, that would certainly help him. I will say this. He loves tight ends, and Gesicki getting hurt in that game, he caught 2 touchdowns from him. He hurt his shoulder. I don't know if he's going to play this week, but if he's out with Gesicki, that's really going to hurt them because he's legit.
No, I would agree. Gesicki's a big weapon for them. I mean, Gesicki is one of the better talented receiving options for that offense. And I think that's why you're going to see them start to mix in other things. Durham Smythe is the guy I know they like as well. Lynn Bowden Jr., the former quarterback, running back, wide receiver of Kentucky, the rookie they traded for after the Raiders actually drafted him, traded him to the Miami Dolphins. And there's some other weapons there as well. DeAndre Washington obviously got the start. But it's a banged-up offensive line. I think they're starting, 3 rookies along the offensive line? There's just so many reasons for the supporting cast not to perform well, and Brian Flores is still finding ways to hold them together a bit, obviously with a good defense on the back end.
I wanted to talk to you about Washington's quarterback situation, and Alex Smith is one of those guys. Obviously, everybody's rooting for him, right? That goes without saying. Unbelievable comeback. But he's not a guy that an analytics guy is going to love. You guys have him rated 34th. Even as a fan of the team, I sit there and I hold my nose with all these checkdowns and almost refusal to throw the ball downfield at times. And yet they're 9-4 in games he started and finished here in D.C. And during his tenure, the same record, there's something like 6-26 when he hasn't played. I know people don't like to ascribe wins to quarterbacks, but he manages a game pretty darn well. And yet I look at your rankings, and you got it rated below Taysom Hill, Mike Glennon, Gardner Minshew, hell, even Kyle Allen's a notch above him. So sort of what's your evaluation on Alex?
Yeah, Alex Smith, and I think the win-loss record thing is fine. With quarterbacks, specifically how Alex Smith plays the game, he's trying to manage the game to let others win it. That's how he plays. He wants Cam Sims, Steven Sims, Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas, Antonio Gibson. They are going to win the football game after he facilitates that offense. A true point guard, a 0-10 type of point guard with 10 assists. And defensively, they're good. And the Washington football team ranks inside the top 3 in EPA per play allowed over the past 4 or 5 weeks. They're a very, very good defense led by Ron Rivera, Chase Young, Cameron Curl even showing up, the other rookie there. I think this is a team with an Alex Smith that can win football games. Can they win enough for a Super Bowl? That's always hard. Not having that quarterback that elevates the supporting cast, not just places the level up, but elevates the supporting cast, is what wins Super Bowl in the NFL. That's what Aaron Rodgers does. That's what Tom Brady has done for a long time. Drew Brees, obviously Patrick Mahomes. Those are the quarterbacks that are going to be Vegas favorites in the Super Bowl and then in the postseason. The Washington football teams of the world, where they have a game manager at quarterback and a ton of good pieces and great coaching, are always playing against the 8 ball because they don't have that guy that elevates the supporting cast. So, yes, is there a chance that Alex Smith and this Washington football team can make a deep postseason run? Absolutely, but it's so much harder to do so. You need so many things to go right. You need to stay healthy offensively, specifically along the offensive line. Your defense can't regress against better offenses, and for that reason, the quarterback situation in Washington right now is difficult. They are playing their way out of a top 3 quarterback in the 2021 NFL draft, where I thought when they benched Dwayne Haskins, they were well on their way to adding maybe a Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, whoever it may be. Now, they're going to be in this position where Alex Smith is playing them into either purgatory, drafting consistently between 16 and 22 as long as he's healthy, or making these Cinderella-like runs. I don't have to tell you guys that if Alex Smith was making a run in the NFC playoffs, they'd be an underdog in every single game. That is a problem because you need an offense, specifically a quarterback, that can push ahead other offenses in today's NFL. Alex Smith doesn't win in the shootout like we saw last night. You need a guy that can be under center and really lead this offense to 40-plus points a week.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. They're in an awkward spot, but they find themselves winning when he's in there. What about Haskins, though? Did you look? You guys got him ranked 60th. He hadn't played much. He played the first 4 games, and we all know about his inaccuracy issues and that sort of thing. Did you see any growth at all in his small little play last week?
Absolutely. Growth in and of itself, that he was able to come in and look stable, look confident. That was incredible. Dwayne Haskins' concerns, in addition to what you see on the field and accuracy and sometimes struggling under pressure, sending him to the bench could have a lot of different effects on a young quarterback in the NFL. Him being able to come back and rally as that number 2 quarterback when Alex Smith got hurt, I think was very impressive for his development. So many people I've talked to around the league have spoke to Dwayne Haskins' maturity or lack thereof. And I think you saw maturity in his performance that day. And I think that in and of itself is really impressive for Dwayne Haskins. I don't know if he's the starter in Washington in 2021. I think Alex Smith would be the guy if they don't make an upgrade at that position. But still very good for his stock. I think he's, hopefully in this situation of realization that he can be a capable backup quarterback in the NFL, and he just needs to earn that opportunity with Washington or wherever team he ends up.
Now, that being said, if Alex can't go, I don't think Alex is going to be able to go because of the calf, and Dwayne's going to start against Seattle. Do you give Washington any prayer of a chance against Seattle with Haskins starting?
Absolutely. I mean, the Washington football team plays a very similar style of football to the New York Giants. And the New York Giants were able to pull off an upset win against the Seattle Seahawks because the Seattle Seahawks defense has struggled all year long, regardless of who the opposing quarterback is. And offensively, Russell Wilson, though throwing on early downs at a higher rate against good defenses, has been limited. And I would say the Washington football team, how they're playing defense right now, is absolutely bonkers. And I think they can go in against Seattle and put up a very, very good performance. It'll be closer than people think. I'm not sure what the opening spread is for that game, but the Washington football team defense, I think, keeps them in that game. It's going to be close. Russell Wilson has had MVP-like performances this season. If he turns in one of those, it's an obvious W for Seattle. But if the Washington defense, similar to what they did against Pittsburgh, similar to what they've done against other teams of late, can play against Russell Wilson and limit him, I think they keep him in it.
Hey, real quick, before we let you go, I wanted to just get your take. You mentioned those college quarterbacks, and Washington obviously keeping an eye on all of those. They may be playing their way out of that situation clearly. Zach Wilson, a guy apparently is zooming up everybody's board. I read somewhere today where some executive, unnamed executive, said he may be moving ahead of Justin Fields. But I want to just get your quick take on that. And then you mentioned Trey Lance, and I'll admit I've only seen tape of one of his games, and I watched the every throw bit. And it was, I think, the game he played this year, and he was so inaccurate, I said, he's off my board. He's a freak athlete. I mean, he could do a Lamar Jackson impression running the football, but I have no interest in that guy as far as passing, but maybe I'm being unfair.
I'll start with Zach Wilson. I've heard from multiple sources that Zach Wilson is ahead of Justin Fields on people's boards. Jordan Palmer, who works with quarterbacks in the NFL, he currently trains Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, whoever it may be, said, I would have Zach Wilson ahead of Justin Fields right now. Trevor Lawrence is the consensus number 1. That's not crazy. And as for Trey Lance, I think the Lamar Jackson comp's not just. It's Cam Newton. He's very similar to Cam Newton in that he's this big-bodied monster that can run the football with a ton of effectiveness. But the accuracy is a concern. And it's a one-game sample size in a weird year against Central Arkansas. Don't put too much stock into that game. Go back to the previous season where you saw him throw, 28 touchdowns and 0 picks. The bigger problems I have with Trey Lance are not necessarily his accuracy, it's the sample size. You see him play only 18 dropbacks per game in 2019 and then only one game this past season against bad competition in the FCS. Yeah. That and the fact that you just haven't seen enough of the kid in a pro-style offense, even anywhere near pro-style offense. North Dakota State runs the football more than 60% of the time. I think that's where the problems I have with Trey Lance. But this is a very deep quarterback class. After Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, you get into this second tier of Mac Jones of Alabama, the likely Heisman candidate, Kyle Trask of Florida, Desmond Ridder of Cincinnati, Jamie Newman, Georgia. There is a ton of quarterback talent in this class. I'd be confident saying it's one of the more talented class, if not 100% the deepest class I've seen in the past 5-10 years. And I think for that reason, the Washington football team is not out here in terms of if they want to make an upgrade at the quarterback position later in the first round, depending on where they finish in the playoff seeding, because Kyle Trask, Mac Jones, maybe Desmond Ridder, Jamie Newman, maybe these are some guys they can swing the bat on, not as immediate starters, guys that can play behind Haskins or Alex Smith, whoever they end up going with the starter, the guys that they can eventually try and nurture at the position and try and make upgrades down the road.